Class Clown had the 7 dirty words, 7 words you can never say on television. I never called them dirty. LA Times started that. The third album was called Occupation Fool, and I had an extension of the 7 words you can never say called Filthy Words. And I added things. I talked about fart, and I talked about other words that were on the edge, sort of like on the Twilight Zone. I talked about those words. And that piece of material, Filthy Words, was played on the radio in New York City on a listener-supported station. Similar to, it was WBAI in New York, similar to the big ones out here, I forget, KPFK, that kind of thing. Listener-supported. And that was played on a show called Lunch Pail. It was on in the afternoon, and the announcer specifically gave warnings, a couple of warnings, that we're going to play something from an album by George Carlin that has a language you may find objectionable or offensive. And we'll warn you when we play it. If you don't want to hear this sort of thing, tune it out at that time. So they played it, they warned, and then they played it. And there was a professional moralist in the audience, someone in his car with his son who was in his teens. This man was, I don't think he was a minister, but he was part of something I think called Morals in Media, a self-appointed guardian of the public's morals, who listened to the entire piece with his son. And apparently he did not feel the son was morally corrupted by this, nor did he feel he was morally corrupted. Just other people might be morally corrupted, and his job was to protect them. So he made a complaint to the FCC, the only complaint they got. Now, New York is a big market. I'm sure there were 20 million, 25 million radios, counting cars. At that time, not many of them were tuned to BAI, I grant you, but no one else objected. One complaint, they sanctioned the station. The FCC gave them a $100 fine, and they put a mark in your folder for when you have your license renewed, you have a bad mark against you. The station refused the sanction, refused the $100 fine, and they went to district court. And the district court was in Washington, D.C., and 2-1, the station won the case. Freedom of speech was upheld. The FCC then went to the Supreme Court with the case. And in 5 years after they played it, it was played in 1973, 5 years after they played it, the Nixon court decided 5-4 that it was indecent. They had found a new category of bad language because it wasn't obscene. It didn't meet the test for obscenity. It wasn't obscene. But it was indecent. They made that up. And that's now a standard. And that was my contribution. I'm just very pleased in a perverse way to be included somewhere in this this American adventure, in the annals of the legal profession. There is on communications law, there is this footnote called the 7 words you can never say on television. I don't know that any other comedian, a routine by any other comedian has wound up in that position, which makes me, as I say, it's a perverse sort of pride. An irony for me is this. As my material began to take hold, the FM and AM, and the 7 words you can never say on television, that album, Class Clown, as that began to take hold, some teachers played things in their classrooms. Some teachers were fired for that. I remember seeing news stories. I probably have clippings tucked away somewhere. Kids began to recite things. The hair poem was the thing that kids would recite in speech class or something. Another kid might do the disc jockey. I began to hear these things that were seeping into the schoolroom setting, the classroom. And the irony is I quit school in 9th grade and didn't give a shit about schooling. And I used to think to myself, because when I was in the Air Force, I took the equivalency test for high school, which I got passed in the 90s percentile. And then I asked the guy, when I turned in the high school one, I didn't know the mark yet. I turned it into the guy at the base education office in the Air Force. And I said, when can I take the 2-year college equivalency test? He said, well, how much schooling do you have? I said, this will be my high school here, this thing. He said, well, he did this kind of thing. He said, well, let's wait and see how you did on this, you know. So I came in the all 90 percentile, and I gave myself my high school diploma right there. I passed the college one, not quite all in the 90s, a couple of 80s, but I passed the college, 2-year college equivalency, according to the Air Force. I mean, it doesn't count anywhere unless you want to be an officer. And I gave myself my high school diploma as of that time. And then when I began to be quoted in classrooms, not just this initial period we're talking about, but long after, when I would hear that a teacher was assigning some of my things for work, or they were reading something in a class and deconstructing it or something, I gave myself my college degree. I said, that's my college degree. They're using my stuff in the classroom. And then when this thing happened with the communications law, and now it's taught in law school, this is my doctorate. So I've given myself a high school diploma, a college bachelor's of arts, and of course a doctor's, a PhD. So, you know, I've done, it's nice for that stuff to echo through classrooms now. And I'm in textbooks and things, and people who wrote about religion are quoting it in a chapter head. Richard Dawkins used something of mine in a chapter head, and other people like that, you know, and it's stunning to me that this it's come to that. I mean, it's satisfying, it's wonderful. It doesn't make me cocky or anything like that. It just makes me feel the universe is correct. It's operating correctly.